I just woke up. So there are two types of learning. There is learning a specific thing, and there is learning like an overall kind of learning. Here's what I mean. Since I started this channel, a lot of us have believed many things, and some of them were proven to be wrong, like specific things. For example, I might have believed 100 things when I started this channel that I thought were absolutely true. Let's say that out of those 100 things I thought were absolutely true but were not proven yet, 10 of those I have proof on. So let's say, I'll pick a number. Let's say out of these 10 things I now know the reality, I was right on 5 and wrong on 5. So I've got 100 things I'm absolutely sure about, but I don't have definitive proof. And it turns out that on the 10 of those things that I've got proof on, I was right half the time and wrong half the time. That tells me my track record on things I was absolutely certain about, I was only half right. Now, there are two ways to do this. There can be the myopic blinders way, where you only say, oh, I learned 5 things that are not true that I thought were true, and 5 that were true. Or you can look at the big picture and say, hey, listen, it turns out that on things I thought I was certain about, I'm only half right so far. I better go back and look at those 90 other things and say, maybe I shouldn't have such a strong opinion on things are not provable, or I haven't proven. Maybe because my track record is 50%, maybe it's 50% for everything else that I believe is absolutely true. That is the real type of learning. And I think that when it comes to making money in the markets, that is what you need. I think that if you're only learning specific things and not learning an overall picture of yourself, I think you're doomed to lose money over and over again. Because on that one trade, you say, oh, I learned my lesson on that one trade. And then you don't go and make assumptions about everything else. As time goes by, you're going to keep being half wrong about things. I think what you have to do is say, okay, I got burnt half the time and I made money half the time. You know what? On those other 90 things, if I keep that pattern going, I'm going to still be wrong half the time. I better look at these assumptions of things I believe to be absolutely true, and I better step back, because I don't want to keep getting burned. And I see on YouTube, I see people I've been watching for years, they don't get that. They still make videos about how they're absolutely certain about these things that they have no proof about, when in fact they were proven wrong before on things they were also certain about. So I see that on YouTube a lot. In fact, it's very, very common. Here's a second part of this, is that in our culture, I've noticed this thing has happened more and more over the years. As time goes by, more and more people are absolutely certain about things, and they're absolutely stubborn about things, even though it can be folly. So here is my overview point. And first of all, I'm not saying war is a good thing. I'm saying war is a bad thing. Because in war, you have so many people who are innocent getting killed. You have so many people who are doing the right thing getting killed because of randomness. I'm saying war is a bad thing. But here's what happened in the past. When you have these big wars, all the people who are absolutely stubborn and think they're always right, they go off and they get killed because they think they're so right about things, they end up getting killed. It's the Darwin effect, right? They go out there because of the war, and war is very dangerous. And people who have delusions about things, when they're involved in war, those delusions end their lives very quickly. So we live in a time where there's really no war. And I think it's a good thing. I think despite all of this stubbornness on the internet, that is much better than the mass killings and the tragedy and the pain that war brings. And war brings that to everybody. Even the people who are doing the right thing, it happens to them. Right now, in our time and age, while I can watch some of these things and say, oh, they're not learning, they're stubborn. I can say, but you see, the thing is, I can do the right thing and do well, and my risk of getting killed randomly like a war is much smaller. Even with the violence we have, we have whenever there's some tragic shooting, it's in the front page. They make it sound like this is common everywhere. No, like these tragic shootings that you see are a very, very tiny percent of what's happening. They're so tiny that in wartime, like all these tragic shootings together for years don't even like equal like one day of suffering and mass killing. So I mean, I want to look at that logically. And another thing is that the people doing these like mass killings or these tragic things during a wartime, they're off to war very early, and they're either killing the enemy or they're being dumb and getting killed themselves. So again, I am not advocating war at all. I think it's horrible. I just think that this phenomenon we're seeing is partially a result of no war. I think this phenomenon is preferable over war. So what that kind of means is that people who are foolish, they can get slaughtered in the markets but not get slaughtered in a war. And here's what I've discovered. When you see people getting killed in the marketplaces, the people who, a lot of the people who are controlling being foolish, is their mindset isn't, it's not going to destroy them. They didn't have a lot to begin with. They lost little they have, they're mad, but they move on. What I've seen is the people who get destroyed are like, you know, in the stock market crash, you hear about stockbrokers jumping off the buildings. Those are the people who are not used to losing. And when they lose, they can't handle it. You see, on these YouTube channels, we have people who are used to losing so many times that another loss isn't going to push them over the edge because, you know, a lot of us have lost so much in the past. What's another loss? You know, we've been losers before. We lose again. Okay, it sucks, but we move on. But the people who have never been losers, who become a loser, a lot of them just devastates them. It destroys their psyche. I'm saying this for two reasons. One is because there are some really smart people in the world I know who have never really suffered a real devastating loss. And I'm worried that if they do suffer this devastating loss, it could destroy their psyche and then destroy them. So two things. The people who can only learn specific points but not go back and learn the big picture. Like, you know, people who make videos about this is how the reality absolutely works and I'm smart, everybody else is dumb. They're not looking at their track record and saying, okay, what I thought was real in the past might not have been real. I better look at what's real. Those are the kinds of people who they don't tend to jump off the roof for a stock market crash because because in the past they've hit that kind of loss several times. And then there's the people like those stockbrokers on Wall Street who've never had a real loss. The first time they lose, it's so devastating. I want to tell them is that it's okay to lose sometimes, and actually it's necessary. It's necessary to have brutal losses, and it's because everybody's going to lose sometime, and if you're not used to it and it happens, it could destroy you. So thanks for watching, and everybody be well.